Hello, everyone. We're so glad to have you here with us today. Whether you're listening while relaxing at home or maybe taking a walk, welcome. I'm Agnes, and I'm here with my amazing co-host, Jasper. Together, we love sharing tips and ideas to help you improve your English. How's it going, Jasper?
Hey, Agnes. I'm doing great, and I'm really excited about today's topic. It's one that a lot of people are curious about. So, let's start by saying thank you to everyone who's tuning in. We're grateful for all of you who take the time to join us here. Learning English takes dedication, and by listening to this podcast, you're already on the right path. Now, Agnes, do you want to let everyone know what we're talking about today?
Absolutely. Today, we're diving into a fun and special topic: how to learn English through movies. Yes, movies. This is such an exciting way to learn because it combines entertainment with language practice. Who doesn't love watching a good movie, right? But watching movies in English isn't just for fun. It's a powerful tool to help you improve. Isn't that right, Jasper?
Exactly, Agnes. Watching movies in English lets you hear real, everyday language. You get to hear how people speak naturally with all the slang, expressions, and different accents. Plus, it's a lot more interesting than reading a textbook, wouldn't you say?
Oh, definitely. And here's something I think is important to mention. When you watch a movie in English, you're not just learning words and grammar. You're also seeing how people interact, how they express emotions, and how they use body language. This is all part of understanding a language deeply. It's about learning how to communicate, not just memorize words. And that's what makes learning through movies so effective and fun.
Well said, Agnes. And for anyone wondering how to get started, don't worry. That's what we're here to talk about today. We'll be sharing some simple, practical tips that you can use to make the most out of watching movies in English. So, if you love movies and want to use them as a learning tool, this episode is for you. Let's start by talking about why movies are such a great resource for English learners.
Great idea, Jasper. So, one reason movies are fantastic for learning English is because of the exposure they provide. When you watch a movie, you're listening to a wide range of vocabulary in different contexts. You'll hear everyday words as well as more complex ones. And you'll get a chance to see how different words are used in various situations. For example, in a romantic movie, you might learn phrases about love and emotions. In an action movie, you might pick up some words related to adventure and excitement. It's like stepping into different worlds, each with its own language style.
Exactly, Agnes. And what's even better is that movies show you language in context. Think about it, you're hearing words in full sentences, and you're seeing how they fit into conversations. It's not just random vocabulary, it's real communication. And because you're seeing and hearing at the same time, you're more likely to remember the words. It's almost like the scenes create a picture in your mind, making it easier to recall later.
That's so true, Jasper. And speaking of pictures, watching movies is also helpful for learning pronunciation. Sometimes words in English don't sound the way they look, and that can be confusing. But when you watch a movie, you hear how words are pronounced naturally. You can also pick up on things like intonation, how a person's voice goes up and down in a sentence, and rhythm. These are things that are hard to learn from a book, but come naturally when you listen to people speak in movies.
Absolutely, Agnes. Intonation and rhythm are so important in making your English sound natural. And movies are also great for exposing you to different accents. English is spoken in so many countries, each with its own accent, and movies are one of the easiest ways to hear a variety of them. Whether it's American, British, Australian, or even different regional accents within the same country, you get to hear them all in movies.
Right? and that diversity can help listeners feel more comfortable with different ways of speaking English. But I think what makes movies so enjoyable for learning is that they create an emotional connection. When you're invested in the story and the characters, you naturally pay more attention. You're not just learning English, you're also enjoying yourself, laughing, crying, and feeling inspired. And those emotions help the language stick in your mind.
Yes, it's like the story pulls you in, and before you know it, you're absorbing all this new vocabulary and language structure without even realizing it. That's the beauty of learning through movies. It doesn't feel like studying, it feels like an adventure. So, if you're someone who finds traditional studying a bit boring, movies might be the perfect way for you to practice English.
Absolutely. And it's worth mentioning that you don't have to understand every single word to benefit from watching movies in English. It's normal to miss some words or phrases, especially when you're just starting. The important thing is to keep watching and keep listening. Over time, you'll start to understand more and more. It's like putting together a puzzle. Each piece, each word adds to the bigger picture.
That's a great point, Agnes. And to make the most of your movie watching experience, there are a few simple techniques you can try. For example, if you're a beginner, you can start with subtitles in your native language, then switch to English subtitles as you get more comfortable. This way, you'll have a guide but also be able to focus on the English words being spoken.
Yes, subtitles can be a huge help. And here's another tip: try to choose movies that you've already seen in your native language. This way, you already know the plot and can focus more on the language. You'll find it easier to understand because you're already familiar with the story. It's like revisiting an old friend, but learning something new each time.
That's a fantastic tip, Agnes. Another technique is to watch scenes over again. If there's a part that's interesting or a phrase you want to learn, just rewind and listen to it a few times. Try repeating what the characters say, like you're practicing the lines yourself. This can be a fun way to practice pronunciation and sentence flow.
Absolutely, Jasper. And one final tip is to keep a notebook handy. Whenever you hear a new word or phrase that you want to remember, write it down. Later, you can review these notes and even try to use those words in your own sentences. It's a small step that can make a big difference.
Right, Agnes? That's a fantastic point about using a notebook. Writing things down can make such a difference. When you see a word or phrase on paper, it helps you process it in a new way, and it gives you something to look back on. Think of it like creating your own little dictionary of words and expressions you've picked up from movies. Plus, it's rewarding to look at your notes and see how much you've learned over time. Another thing that can be super helpful when learning through movies is to pay attention to repeated phrases or expressions. Movies, especially in certain genres, tend to use similar words or phrases often. For example, if you're watching a crime or detective movie, you'll probably hear phrases like "on the case," "under investigation," or "you have the right to remain silent." By hearing these phrases multiple times, they'll start to feel familiar, and you'll recognize them if you hear them in other contexts.
That's so true, Jasper. Repetition is a powerful way to reinforce language, especially when it comes naturally in something like a movie. And the more often you hear certain words or phrases, the more they become part of your own vocabulary. It's almost like learning through osmosis. You just absorb the language. And it's not just about individual words, you're also learning expressions and phrases, which makes your English sound more natural.
Exactly. And speaking of sounding natural, movies are a great way to hear idioms and slang, too. Sometimes, formal English lessons don't focus as much on these because they're more casual. But in everyday life, native speakers use idioms and slang all the time. For example, if a character says, "break a leg," they're actually wishing someone good luck, not suggesting they get hurt. Or when someone says, "I'm feeling under the weather," it means they're not feeling well. Picking up on these little details can make a big difference in understanding casual conversations.
Yes, and idioms can be so fun to learn because they add color to the language. And once you start recognizing them in movies, you can try using them yourself. It might feel a little awkward at first, but practicing these expressions can make you sound more fluent and give you confidence. Plus, it's always fun to surprise people with a clever phrase or two.
And let's not forget body language. Agnes, watching movies gives you the chance to see how people communicate not just with words, but with gestures, facial expressions, and posture. This is a huge part of fluency, even if it's not directly about vocabulary. Sometimes, body language can change the meaning of a sentence. For example, if someone says fine while shrugging and looking away, it might mean they're actually not fine. Watching these nonverbal cues can help you understand the full meaning behind words and give you insight into cultural nuances.
Oh, absolutely, Jasper. Body language is such an important part of communication, and it's something that's hard to teach in a traditional classroom. By watching how people act in movies, you can pick up on these subtleties. And this helps make your own communication richer and more expressive. It's amazing how much you can learn just by observing. And something else I want to bring up is pacing yourself. If you're new to learning through movies, it's okay to start small. Maybe try watching just one scene at a time instead of the entire movie. Pause and rewind as needed, and don't be afraid to watch the same scene multiple times. Breaking it down can make it less overwhelming and more manageable.
That's a really good point, Agnes. Watching a whole movie can feel like a lot at first, especially if you're still building your vocabulary. So, by focusing on one scene, you can really dive into the details, and here's a tip for choosing scenes. Pick moments where characters are having clear conversations. Action scenes can be fun, but they might not have as much dialogue. Instead, try scenes where characters are chatting at a cafe, having a discussion, or sharing their thoughts. These are often packed with useful language.
Yes, conversations in movies are like little language lessons. And something I like to do is to look for scenes with emotional depth. When characters are expressing strong feelings like happiness, sadness, frustration, or excitement, you get to see how tone and emotion affect language. How people speak when they're happy might be different from when they're upset, and these changes can help you understand the subtle nuances of English.
Absolutely, Agnes. Emotions add so much to language. And you know, when you see those emotions in a character's voice and facial expressions, it sticks with you. You're not just learning words, you're learning how to connect those words with feelings. This can be especially helpful when you're practicing your own English. Instead of focusing only on saying the words correctly, you can also think about how to express them with feeling, just like the characters do in movies.
And that's where practice really comes in. Watching the movie is only half the experience, speaking is the other half. After you watch a scene, try repeating some of the lines out loud. You can even mimic the character's tone and expression. It might feel a bit silly, but this exercise helps with pronunciation, rhythm, and confidence. Think of it as acting practice. It's like stepping into the character's shoes, even just for a moment.
That's a fantastic idea, Agnes. And speaking of acting, why not try shadowing? Shadowing is when you play a line from the movie and then immediately repeat it, trying to match the character's tone, speed, and accent as closely as possible. This technique is great for improving your pronunciation and making your speech sound more natural. It's like a workout for your mouth and ears.
Oh, shadowing is such a powerful tool, and it's a great way to push yourself to sound more fluent. When you practice shadowing, you're training yourself to think and speak in English faster. It's challenging, but with regular practice, you'll notice that your speaking speed and fluency improve. And here's a bonus tip. If you're feeling ambitious, try to create your own mini dialogue by combining lines from different characters. Imagine yourself as a new character in the movie.
Haha, that sounds like so much fun, Agnes, and it's a creative way to engage with the language. The more you play around with English, the more comfortable you'll become. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how we learn. The important thing is to stay curious and keep trying. Remember, the goal is not to be perfect, but to communicate.
Exactly, Jasper. Learning a language is a journey, and every little step counts. When you're watching a movie and repeating lines or trying out new expressions, you're building a foundation. So, to everyone listening, remember that it's okay if you don't understand everything right away. With every movie you watch, you're moving closer to fluency. So keep going, keep watching, and most importantly, enjoy the process. After all, learning through movies is meant to be fun.
That's such a great reminder. Agnes enjoying the process really makes a difference. Learning through movies isn't just about getting fluent. It's about having fun and making the experience feel less like work and more like a rewarding adventure. And honestly, one of the things I love about movies is that they let us immerse ourselves in English in a natural way. Think about it. When you're watching a movie, you're hearing the language as it's actually spoken in real-life situations. You're not just learning English, you're learning how people interact, how they respond, how they show emotion. This immersion is powerful, even if you're only watching for a short time each day. It allows you to pick up on little things like intonation, which is how the voice rises and falls to convey different emotions. For example, when a character's voice goes up at the end of a sentence, it might mean they're asking a question or showing surprise. And these details are important because they help you understand the mood of a conversation, not just the words.
Exactly, Jasper. Intonation is something we don't always think about, but it really shapes the meaning behind words. For example, if a character says really, with a flat tone, they might not be interested, but if they say really, with an excited tone, they're surprised or curious. By watching movies, you start to notice these nuances, and then you can use them in your own English. You're not just learning vocabulary, you're learning expression, which makes your English feel more natural. And speaking of expression, movies are also a fantastic way to get used to different accents and dialects. Think about how many English accents there are: American, British, Australian, Canadian, the list goes on. By listening to different accents, you become more adaptable and can understand English speakers from all over the world. Plus, it's fun. You get to hear how the same language can sound completely different depending on where it's spoken.
That's so true, Agnes. And accents really add flavor to the language. Imagine watching a British movie and hearing phrases like fancy a cuppa. Or blimey, those are things you might not hear in an American movie. By experiencing these accents, you're getting a more complete view of the English language. And if you're up for a challenge, you can even try imitating some of those accents. It might feel funny at first, but it helps your pronunciation and makes you a more flexible speaker. And who knows, you might even impress your friends with your British or Australian accent.
Haha. Yes, playing with accents is a great way to improve your pronunciation. But even if accents feel difficult, the important thing is to focus on understanding. When you're watching a movie, see if you can catch differences in how people from different places pronounce certain words or phrases. For example, an American might say water with a softer T sound, like water, while a British person might pronounce the T very clearly. It's a subtle difference, but it can really help you tune your ear to variations in English. And here's another tip. If you find an accent hard to understand, start with subtitles. Don't worry if you need to read along at first, it's all part of the learning process. Subtitles can help you connect the spoken words with their written forms, making it easier to recognize them next time.
Absolutely. Subtitles are a great tool. You can even start by watching with subtitles in your own language and then switch to English subtitles once you're comfortable. It's a gradual way to ease into full comprehension. And for people who want to really challenge themselves, try watching without subtitles once you're ready. It's a bit like training wheels eventually. You take them off and realize you can balance on your own. And here's something else that can make the learning experience more effective. Choose movies you actually enjoy. If you love comedies, pick a funny movie. If you're into mysteries, watch a detective story. When you're interested in what's happening, you'll be more engaged and motivated to understand the dialogue. Plus, you're more likely to remember new words or phrases if they're connected to a story that captured your attention.
Exactly, Jasper. Watching something you enjoy makes learning feel less like a chore and more like a treat. And don't be afraid to rewatch movies you love. Every time you watch, you'll catch new details. Maybe the first time, you understand only the general story, but the second time, you start picking up on jokes or expressions that you missed before. Rewatching is such a powerful tool because it reinforces what you've learned and helps you go deeper each time. And another thing to keep in mind is to set small goals for yourself. For example, maybe you decide to focus on understanding 10 new words from a movie, or you want to follow one character's lines closely to improve your listening skills. Setting these small, achievable goals makes each movie feel like a mini lesson. Plus, it gives you a sense of accomplishment every time you reach your goal.
That's a fantastic suggestion. Agnes, goals can really help keep you focused and make the learning experience feel more organized. And even something simple, like writing down a few lines or quotes from the movie, can give you something to practice later. Imagine having a little notebook filled with your favorite quotes and expressions from different movies. Over time, you'll have a collection of phrases that you understand well and can use in your own conversations. And movies are also a way to learn about culture, which is a big part of language learning. When you watch a movie set in a different country, you see how people in that place live, how they speak, what they value, and what their traditions are. All of these cultural elements are wrapped up in language. So, by watching movies, you're not just learning English, you're learning about the world.
Yes, exactly. Culture and language are so deeply connected. If you watch an American family drama, you might learn about holidays like Thanksgiving, and if you watch a British film, you might see how people celebrate holidays like Boxing Day. These little cultural insights make the language feel more alive and relatable. And who knows, it might even inspire you to visit these places someday and use your English in real-life situations.
That's a wonderful point, Agnes. And another cultural element is humor. Humor is different in every language and culture, and by watching comedies, you can learn what people in English-speaking countries find funny. It can be a bit confusing at first, especially if jokes don't translate well, but it's a great way to understand the culture. Plus, laughing while you learn makes everything more enjoyable.
Oh, humor is so interesting. It can be tricky because it often involves wordplay, puns, or cultural references. But once you start understanding it, it feels like a huge achievement. And there is something so rewarding about laughing along with a movie and feeling like you're in on the joke. That's when you know you're really starting to understand the language on a deeper level.
Absolutely. And one last tip that can be helpful: don't rush the process. Learning through movies is a journey, and every little step you take is progress. It's okay if you don't understand everything right away. The goal is to improve over time, and as long as you're putting in the effort, you'll see results. So, to everyone watching and listening, remember that each movie you watch, each line you repeat, and each phrase you write down brings you one step closer to fluency. Enjoy the journey, stay curious, and most importantly, keep going. You're building a skill that will open so many doors, and we're so excited for you.
Absolutely, Jasper. That's such a perfect reminder. Learning English through movies is really about the journey, not just the destination. It's like building a bridge. Each word, each phrase, each scene you understand is like adding another plank. And before you know it, you've built something solid that you can rely on. I think that's the beauty of learning a language this way. It doesn't feel forced. Instead, it's more organic, like you're soaking up the language naturally, just by enjoying yourself. And I know that some people might feel discouraged at times, especially if they don't understand every word or phrase right away. But honestly, that's part of the learning process. Each time you miss a word or get confused, you're actually training your brain to focus and improve. And like Jasper said, it's okay to not rush. Just relax, take your time, and allow the language to come to you. Because sometimes the words and phrases will start making sense without you even realizing it.
Exactly, Agnes. It's amazing how much we can pick up just by letting the language sink in without putting too much pressure on ourselves. And another thing to remember is that learning through movies is a bit like solving a mystery. Think of each scene as a puzzle piece. Some pieces you'll understand immediately, others might take a little time, and that's okay. Over time, all these little pieces come together to create the bigger picture of language fluency. And it's also helpful to remember that fluency isn't just about speaking perfectly, it's about communicating effectively. Movies teach us that if a character stumbles on a word or pauses, they don't lose the meaning of what they're saying. It's the same for learners. Fluency comes with confidence, and confidence comes from understanding that it's okay to be imperfect.
Yes, communication is the goal, not perfection. And movies show us real, everyday conversations where people don't always speak perfectly. They pause, they make mistakes, they even laugh at themselves. This can be so reassuring for English learners because it reminds us that English isn't about being perfect. It's about being real and connecting with others. Another thing I love about using movies to learn English is the way they expand your vocabulary. Not just with fancy or complex words, but also with common, conversational language that people use every day. You get to learn words and phrases that you might not find in textbooks, like casual slang, idioms, or expressions that native speakers use naturally. For example, in a comedy, you might hear phrases like, "What's up?" or "No way," things that make your English sound more friendly and familiar.
Absolutely. And these kinds of expressions really bring your English to life. Knowing how to say hello formally is useful, but knowing how to say, "Hey, what's up?" makes it feel more authentic. Movies give us the chance to learn contextual language, which means you're not only learning new words, but also how, when, and with whom to use them. It's such a powerful way to gain confidence because you know you're using phrases the way they're actually used in real life. And remember, even if you only pick up one or two new expressions from a movie, that's still progress. Language learning isn't a race. It's like planting seeds. You might not see immediate results, but with time and patience, those seeds will grow, and soon you'll have a garden of knowledge to draw from. So keep that in mind. Every little bit counts, and every movie you watch adds something valuable to your English skills.
I couldn't agree more, Jasper. Every small effort adds up over time, and soon enough, you'll find yourself understanding and using English more comfortably and confidently. And one last thing I'd like to add is the idea of enjoying the process. I know we've mentioned this before, but it's really worth repeating. When you're learning through something as enjoyable as movies, try to have fun with it. Don't treat it like a chore or a task on your to-do list. Think of it this way. Imagine you're exploring a new world every time you start a movie. You're not just learning English. You're stepping into different lives, experiencing different places, and gaining a broader perspective of the world. Language is the key that unlocks all of this, so make it a joyful experience.
That's so beautifully said, Agnes. Language really is a key, and every movie we watch gives us a chance to open new doors, see new worlds, and feel connected to people we may never meet. So, to everyone out there learning English, just remember that you're doing something amazing. You're opening yourself up to new opportunities, new connections, and a deeper understanding of the world. So, keep watching, keep listening, and keep enjoying the journey. And if you ever feel stuck or discouraged, just remember that each step you take is a step forward. You're learning, you're growing, and you're getting closer to your goals every day. English isn't just a subject you study. It's a skill you build, a tool you can use, and a bridge to connect with others.
That's right, Jasper. And we just want to thank each and every one of you for joining us on this podcast today. It's such a pleasure to share this journey with you, and we're so happy to see so many people dedicated to learning English. Remember that every time you put on a movie to learn, you're not alone. You have this entire community of learners, teachers, and friends cheering you on. So, to everyone listening, thank you for being with us, for investing in yourselves, and for making learning a part of your life. We hope today's conversation has given you some new ideas, inspiration, and motivation to keep going.
Absolutely. And remember, English is a lifelong journey. There's always something new to learn, something new to experience. So keep watching, keep practicing, and most importantly, keep believing in yourself. Best wishes to each of you in your English journey. Stay curious, stay motivated, and stay connected with the world through language. And with that, we wish you all the best in everything you do.
Thank you, everyone, and goodbye for now. We can't wait to be back with more ideas and tips to make English learning even more fun and effective. Keep going, and remember, you've got this.
Goodbye, everyone. Happy learning, and take care.